Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mentor Minutes. I'm Jay.
I'm Jared.
And today we're going to be talking through another one of our top 10 lists. Last time we did our top 10 over 40, which covered games that were 40 years old or older. And tonight we're going to be doing our top 10 over 30, so that covers 1981 to 1990.
That's right.
And like we did last time, Jared, were there anything interesting or how did you go about making the list this time?
Yeah, so making this list I felt was actually more difficult. I was pretty surprised than the games that came out prior to 1980. I guess there's maybe either not a lot of games that I've played that have come out in this decade, or the games that I have played I just wasn't as impressed with. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. There's so many games I saw that I knew people would say that's definitely got to be on the list.
Yeah.
But because I hadn't played them, I couldn't put them on the list.
Right.
And I really struggled to get 10. I mean, I may have gotten 11 games total, but this was a lot harder for me too.
Right.
And just a caveat before we get started too is there are a couple games here that. Well, we'll get into it when I get into the list, but there are different versions and printings of those games. So I also kind of use that as an umbrella if I'd played maybe a little bit more modern version of it as well.
I hear you, and I think I understand why the need to flex that out a little bit, just because I felt like the pick of the games that are possible to choose from in this category was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So again, this is totally just our unique opinions, and we haven't discussed over our 10s yet. We'll just find out with you. But as far as for me, again, this is based on my experience, games that I've played, maybe games that I've owned, and personally, a lot of my list is very nostalgic as well.
I totally agree with you. There's a few picks here that are absolutely nostalgia, and I may not have even played them in years.
Right. So, I'm not saying you should go out and buy any of these necessarily. It's
right,
just...
or if they're even in print in some cases.
But I do want to hear what you guys think about your top 10 picks for games that came out in this time period, 81 to 90. So I think we should just head into it.
Yeah, start off with number 10.
Great.
All right.
Number 10.
Okay, for my number 10, I chose a game called Enchanted Forest. This is a Ravensburger game. It came out in 1981, and this is a kid's game. But I have really such fond memories of playing this with my kids, and actually I do still own it. It is still in print. And if you're looking for a game and as an adult that you can play with your kids without getting super bored, this is a good one because although
that's the benchmark right now.
That's my benchmark.
You won't die of boredom.
You will not die of boredom
with his number 10
with
pick.
your kids. That's my like general like kid games, like family game statement, right?
Cool.
So like this was not one I would say pull out on a game night with my buddies. But with the kids, this was one where I was just getting into the hobby about 4 years ago. This is one that they would play consistently.
Right.
And the cool thing is it's a beautiful production, beautiful board, and there's these little trees all over the board in certain spots. And it's sort of a storybook type theme. And you're looking essentially for collecting different items. And the items are actually what you find underneath the tree. So if you lift the tree up, on the bottom is a specific item. You get the card, and if you collect so many items, you win the game. It does have roll and move, but the neat thing is you're rolling a couple dice, and you can actually choose how you want to split your movement because you actually have two different figures on the board.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of strategy, there's a little bit of memory, there's a little bit of matching. And it's got great components. So for a family game, especially for kids that are, I would say, anywhere from, say, 4 to 8, about that range, Enchanted Forest, I think, is a really great game.
Cool. I've never played that one. But from the sounds of things, we'll have to do that with the kids or something.
Definitely.
Cool. For my number 10, this is a game that I played when I was a kid with my sister. So I think this was actually her game, but it was pretty unique at the time, and it's one that if you haven't played it, it's pretty interesting. And at the time, it was one of the few games that had a digital mechanism to it. Okay. Can you know what it is?
I have a suspicion.
Electronic Mall Madness.
Okay. That's not the one I was thinking.
Okay. It's not high on anyone's list, but
funny.
I have very fond memories of playing this game. the concept or the theme is basically you're competing to buy certain items from all the different stores in the mall. There's a lower and an upper floor, and the board was huge for this time period. And in the center there was the bank where there's steps on either side, and you've got your little ATM card. You push it in there, and it gives you money and whatever. Plus you use it to make transactions. But the digital aspect is every now and again it'll pop up and say, hey, there's a sale going on at XYZ store, or there's a clearance at such and such store. So you'd move the little sale and clearance icons around. So you're trying to get the best price. You don't waste all your money. I think that was part of the scoring. So you're always kind of adjusting that and trying to get to these places as soon as you can, because you don't know when it's going to pop back in and change where the sales are and all that. Pretty basic on how it's played. It is like just I think it was a roll-in move, like you just roll dice to move. But it was really unique at the time, very fun, and hey, I mean,
yeah, why not pick it? I mean, this is one I've never played this game. I've seen it played, and I've actually heard that some people will bring this and play this at conventions, just for fun.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of one of those one of those guilty pleasure games. I guess it's like everyone knows it's cheesy and kind of dumb,
Bradley type games,
but it's got that nostalgia feel to it. And of course, if we still had it, we'd have like the 1989 version or whatever it was. So
yeah, cool, good pick.
Thanks. Number 9. All right, so my number 9 after Mall Madness is a game called Labyrinth, which is a neat little puzzly, abstract type of game where you've got your people that you're trying to move through this maze and collect, your gems before everybody else, and then leave the maze. The trick to this is that on your turn, everyone takes the extra map location tile and can slide it in one of the rows or columns, which as they slide, one pops out, and now the whole map, you might get blocked, or your pathway is now no longer viable. So it's basic concept, but plays really well. It's had several reprints, and people still play it today. So it's one that I can still recommend as a great game. You can still pull out. It is very lightweight, but plays great with families, and as a in-between game between some heavier stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And that's another Ravensburger game, too.
It is.
So
it is.
It's a good family game. Good pick. All right, well, my number 9 is a game which I never owned, but I was always jealous because my friends did. And that was Crossbows and Catapults. That came out in 1983. And it was really just this medieval-themed game that had actually working crossbows and working catapults, where you would essentially... build up like a castle with all these wall pieces, and then you would go on the other side of the room and you try to use your catapults or the crossbows to knock down the pieces and knock the king off the top of the tower, things like that.
Now, were they standees or miniatures?
They were actually plastic, like miniatures, and all the wall pieces were made of plastic. The crossbows had like rubber bands, so they actually shot things.
Oh wow!
So it was kind of that toy versus game, and I don't even know if we ever played it with the rules. It was more like
why would you?
It was more like a toy, but it was just a cool production. It was one of those games that people were getting at Christmas, and I always thought was just a lot of fun, and I had fond memories playing it with my friends.
Did it ever get reprinted or anything?
I think it did, but I don't think it has been reprinted in the last maybe 5 years or so.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure there's a version that it's still available today without paying like crazy eBay prices.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the older games that, even if they're not super great production, like they're still going to be expensive because you can't find them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my number 9, Crossbows and Catapults.
Number 8.
Okay, so for my number 8, it's a game called Labyrinth.
Never heard of that.
This is our first crossover.
Yes.
And everything you said, this is still a game that I own. It's still a game that I really enjoy. That mechanic of sliding the tiles. It's real puzzly, but it's not so puzzly that you can't play with your family and your kids.
It's not a brain burner.
It's not a brain burner. And you can do things like as an adult to make it more or less difficult and things like that. But really cool game. And I even was at Target the other day, and they've got like a Harry Potter version of this now.
Yeah. That would be kind of interesting.
Yeah. So it's still a big seller. Still a great family game, and one of the first games I started to play with my kids when I got in the hobby. So
yeah, and because it's still on the shelf and people still play it, you may not realize that it's this old.
Yeah,
and that it's had this much of a legacy.
Yeah, it's been in print for all those years, and I think that's a testament as to why it's such a great family game. So,
pretty cool.
Yeah, Labyrinth, my number 8.
So my number 8 is a card game, which you may or may not have played, called Phase 10. Phase 10 is it's sort of a rummy-esque card game where there's 10 phases of rounds that you're trying to, make runs of different cards, of numbers and that sort of thing. It plays really well, not super complicated, and for people who like card games, people who are familiar with rummy or, just poker or something like that, I think they'll be right at home playing Phase 10. And it's easy to break out at parties or, with all age groups, like grandparents can play and all that stuff too. So, it's still talked about. So I think these are the games that I chose on my list because they're still relevant or they had an impact, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is one that I know I've played it. But it always sort of gets like lost in my mind between like this one and like Skip-Bo and Uno. They all kind of run together a little bit for me.
Yeah.
So I saw it on when I was looking up this one on BGG, but it's just one that because I couldn't remember it that well, I didn't include it on my list. But good pick.
Number 7. So my number 7, after Phase 10, is a classic party game that you might consider. It's also, I believe, the first of its kind, and it's had thousands of iterations since. It's a game called Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a gamer's game as far as like strategy and how things work now. So if you're a hobbyist, you kind of like roll your eyes at it. But its impact, its legacy, and what it did for the hobby is undeniable. Trivial Pursuit, and if you haven't played, Trivial Pursuit has like 6 categories or 7 categories, and you're trying to collect these tokens from each one.
Yeah, like piece of a pie or something.
Right,
yeah.
a pie, or the Simon Says color wheel kind of thing.
If
you're familiar with Simon Says.
It does look like that.
Yeah. So it's it's a trivia game. I mean, and there's different categories. So you generally get to choose a category, or you move your person along, and you kind of have to answer a question based on the color that you land on. But again, since it's had so many iterations, you can play this and get a customized, in a sense, version of Trivial Pursuit over a topic that interests you. I mean, you could probably name a topic, and there's a Trivial Pursuit for it.
Yeah.
So I think as far as that goes, it's still a very influential game. And when people think of board games, especially from this decade, Trivial Pursuit has to be on that list. And if you're looking for a very light but fun kind of large scale party game where everyone doesn't have to be huddled around a table, and you could play this, basically sitting in the living room, on the couch.
Definitely.
It works. It's great for, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that stuff's coming up. So Trivial Pursuit, it's a classic, and you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. The reason I didn't put this on my list is because, like, I love so many of sort of the derivatives of Trivial Pursuit, the modern takes on it. But yeah, absolutely, that's influenced. I mean, just about every I mean, from Wits and Wages to Half Truth, which just came out recently. I mean, there's so many games that's influenced. So good pick.
Thank you.
All right, my number 7 is a game called Wiz War, and this came out in 1983. I haven't played the 1983 original copy. I have played a more modern version.
They've reprinted it a couple times.
They've reprinted it several times. It's a cool game. It's one of the first sort of almost like a skirmish game where each person has like a wizard or a mage, and then you have a handful of cards. And the cards give you special abilities to let you move or cast spells on the other wizards. And there's portals and things like that. Some people have really like decked this game out with like 3D printers and stuff. Still gets played today. It's just one of those games that to me looks like it's heavily influenced some of the more modern games like Arcadia Quest and other skirmish games where it's just kind of dudes on a map. Yeah. But I think what set it apart is even though it was an older game, it used cards to do a lot of the plays. You could do counter spells. So it really kind of took one of those sort of collectible card type games like Magic and almost put it into a board game format where you had pieces on the board and figures and things like that.
Although this was way before Magic.
It was, yeah, it was. And actually, I don't know who the designer is. I forgot who the designer is.
Of Wiz War?
Of Wiz War, yeah.
I'll put it up on the screen later.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, I think it's actually somebody that we'd recognize. I just slipping the name, but yeah, cool game. Haven't played a lot. I haven't owned this one, but I've played it with friends and left an impression. Wiz War is my number 7.
It's one that I've always been. It's always kind of been talked about and I've heard about it. I have never played it though, so I couldn't put it on my list. But it is one that's still on that kind of bucket list of older board games to try.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's still a good game.
Yeah.
Definitely
Although
a good
I gotta say the name is pretty terrible.
game. Yeah, they really should have. They should have come up with a better
Doesn't
name.
sound good.
I totally agree.
Number 6.
Okay, so my number 6 is another game where I've not played the original, but this is a game that I think tons of people played, and that is Werewolf. So Werewolf, Werewolf actually, I think even before 1986, you could play it. There was a game called Mafia, and you could even play it with just a deck of like 52 cards or whatever.
Or we'd play Mafia without a card,
or with even out without
write
cards.
stuff on cards.
That's true. That's true. You can do it without
no cards.
But Werewolf really kind of took that concept of and added kind of additional roles to it. Kind of broke it into phases, made it a bit more thematic. And just kind of took what was a really public domain and made it into this sort of trademark based board game.
Something that someone could make money off of.
Exactly. And now the license for this now is with like Ted Alsbach through with Bezier Games, and they print so many iterations of the game. But basically, what it is, if you haven't heard of it, is you have a team that's typically broken up into werewolves and villagers. And all the werewolves and village roles are secret, and there are different characters like a seer who can kind of keep their eyes open and know who certain characters are and things like that. And ultimately, you're trying to eliminate the werewolves or you're trying to eliminate the visitors. And there's
villagers.
Villagers. What did I say?
Visitors.
Visitors. Villagers. Thank you.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, you got and you have different day phases and night phases, and it's a cool game. It's a neat concept, and they've added tons of roles over the years to where you can even play this game with like 100 people.
That's amazing.
They've got an ultimate version of it, but great
I believe
convention.
It's called One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
They have like One Night Ultimate Werewolf. They have Ultimate Werewolf. They have like an alien-based game. So there's just all kinds of different
themes too, right?
So, tons of themes, tons of different iterations. So anyone that you find is a pretty good game. And I highly recommend it.
This is its grandfather, right?
That's right.
For those common ones people are playing now, like Secret Hitler and the Resistance.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think all those sort of spawned off of this and have just
know your history
from it. So yeah,
it's a good pick.
Yeah, thank you. So that's my number 6, Werewolf.
My number 6 is another classic game that you can probably find at most bars, especially like in outdoor seating areas. It's called Jenga.
Yep.
Yep.
I thought about this one.
Yep.
I thought about putting this one on my list.
So if you haven't heard, I don't know where you've been, but Jenga is a group of blocks that all are of the same height, size, width, and all that stuff. And you stack them up 3 over each other, interlocking like that. And then players take turns pulling out one block at a time until the thing falls down, and whoever made it fall loses. Now, I've seen this played at conventions, like on a larger scale with like larger 2x4 blocks, right? And usually that's by team, and so they'll have like a team wheel going, and so once that team's done, then they move it to the next team, and so you've got your name badge, and so when you see your team's up, and you can pull a block. And then that's how that goes. So it's easy to play over, like a long period of time with like hundreds of people if you do it that way.
Okay, yeah.
But it's also, meant for small scale, just sitting on the table. You can play with your kids. It's super easy to teach, and it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this is one where they've also got a bunch of variants to this one too.
They've got like truth or dare ones. They've got other types of like whichever one you pull, that's what you have to do.
I had this one called, I think it was Jenga Quake. And the base would actually like in a random sequence would sort of vibrate. And it would make the whole thing kind of rotate and fall. So it was it's a
Does
fun,
it have one where
version.
it just constantly turns?
Who knows? Maybe that would be.
If
tough.
they haven't, then you should do that. That'd be cool because then you're like, wait a minute.
Can we trademark this? No.
I know. That's my idea.
Yeah. Good pick.
Jenga. Number 5. So my number 5 pick is another type of card game called Car Wars. Of course, that's a pun, play off words of Star Wars. And I got to play this more recently, actually, the Steve Jackson version. But it originally started back in the 80s. So Car Wars is a game where you have your car and you can build out defenses and offensive equipment on the car, and you're trying to destroy your opponent's car. So each car has like a health value or life point total and different things that you can do, and playing with the cards and that sort of thing. You basically are simulating a car war, right? It's great. I like the production value of like the newer editions. I haven't played the original, but this is where it started.
Like the X-Wing games, kind of like, but it's using cards instead of miniatures, sort of. No,
It's not spatially based.
Okay.
It's not necessarily like where it's located or angles or anything like that,
Okay.
as you might find with Star Wars, X-Wing or Legion or something.
Okay.
It seems like it's more based on like stats and that sort of stuff, and like what you want to attack with and what he's going to block with.
Okay, almost like hero clicks or something.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Okay.
So I mean, it kind of when you're playing, you might imagine it's more of like a sci-fi theme because of course you're customizing it, or you can imagine it's more like Mad Max, Fury Road, or whatever.
Or that like Twisted Metal game.
Twisted Metal,
from, PlayStation. Or whatever.
PlayStation.
That's what it reminded me of.
So I mean, you can really get into the theme of this, even though it's very simple. But it's got a small footprint, so you can play it. I believe you can bring it and play it on a small table, take it with you. So that's my pick.
Yeah, sounds interesting. All right, so my number 5 is a little game called Fireball Island, and this came out in 1986.
It's a good pick.
This is I suspect this might show up again. This is a game that was one of those kind of grail type games for a lot of people because they had really great nostalgic memories of this game. It's been out of print forever, and trying to buy an old copy of this was, really expensive.
Hundreds of
dollars. But thankfully, Restoration Games had recently run a Kickstarter where they had done a reprint of this game, but they had really made it, they'd modernized it when it comes to modern game mechanics. They redid some of the ways, like the paths that marbles go down and everything. And basically, description of the game is you're all sort of like Indiana Jones type explorers trying to get artifacts on this island that has this active volcano. And so you have this statue at kind of the top of the island that you're putting marbles in, and then the marbles run down tracks and they can knock over your guys or knock over bridges and just kind of mess up your plans. So it's kind of like get on the island that's about to have this volcano explode, get the artifacts, and then leave the island. So really, really cool game. Back to Kickstarter, got a lot of the different expansions for it. Really fun to play and a great family game. Kids typically really like this game. So that's my number 5, Fireball Island.
Number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is a party game called Boulder Dash or Balderdash, and this game came out in 1984. This is just a great game. It's still a great game, and what it is the game has a bunch of different topics where they give you a sort of a name, like an acronym, a strange like law. And you have to kind of write what the definition is of that, and everybody does that secretly, and then you turn all those answers in, mix them up, and then you read them out loud. And there's definitely some sort of point scoring in this game, but we've never used it.
I don't know.
Because it's just hilarious to try to figure out what people are writing for these definitions versus what the actual real definition is. Yeah. And it leads to, laugh out moments, especially when it comes to like questions about old like historic laws or
it's very funny. Yeah.
Very, very funny, hilarious game. And it really is one of those games where if you're a creative person, but you don't like to sort of get up in front of people and like act out charades or things like that.
It's easy to do with introverts.
Yeah, because you're just writing on a piece of paper and then somebody else is reading it.
Yeah.
But
it's also an interesting game to play to get to know people.
That's true.
You
good
kind of
icebreaker.
See what answers they might come up with, and you kind of get to know that what kind of person they are.
Yeah, that's right. This is one of those few games where I've actually like fell out of my chair laughing at some of the stuff that people write down. So Boulder Dash still in print, tons of versions of this game, still a classic, and my number 4.
It's a good pick. My number 4. It's a little game that we've already discussed. You might have heard. It's Fireball Island.
Yeah.
And again, this is a game that came out in the 80s, in 1986.
Yeah.
And so the original version still had the Fireball volcano where you drop the marbles in, and if you get knocked down, you're in trouble. You lose treasure and stuff. It did have some bridges, I believe, in the original, so that if you're on the bridge, then you get knocked off. But it's been super popular. Even to the point, like he was saying, that it got fully reprinted, fully reimagined. I believe they made it almost twice as big in the reprint.
I think so.
I mean, it's got like 3 sections,
big modular
in the new version.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to how exciting seeing a bunch of marbles roll down the board is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because of the random nature of the marbles, I mean, you can't take the game too seriously. So if you're a heavy strategy Euro gamer, you're probably not going to like it as much. But if you have kids, it's a blast. And I mean, it makes lots of noise and things fall down. And
just pure fun.
It's pure fun and chaos. So
yeah.
Fireball Island.
Yeah.
Number 3. So for my number 3, this sort of also falls into that same Boulder Dash category. This is from 1988, a game called Scattergories. And basically you draw a card, and on the card it gives you like a topic or a theme, and then I believe you roll the dice, and then whatever letter comes up, you have to name as many words that you can starting with that letter in that topic. And I believe there's like a timer, whether it's electronic or not. I mean, there's various versions, and you get points for every correct word that matches in that topic. Very simple, but it's had a lasting impact, and it's a party game that you don't have to be at the table for necessarily. Just roll the die when it's your turn and give the guy a card. That's another one you can play with anybody over holidays and all that stuff. And it's just had a lasting impact, and it's still around. And you name Scattergories to someone, most everyone in the room is going to say they've played it or they know it. So
fond memories of playing this one, especially around the holidays, and it's just so easy to pick up and play. And this was my number 11 actually.
Oh really?
Yeah, this was the one that just edged off my list.
So let's hear what your number 4.
Okay, my number 3.
Oh, sorry, are we on number 3?
We are. Are you on 3?
Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
Number 3.
Okay, my number 3. I was gonna make
have it up
prop. I do. I'd have it somewhere, but I'll find it somewhere else. But anyway. Okay, so my number 3 is a game called Take It Easy. And this game came out in 1983, but it's still in print today.
And you got it on your shelf.
And I have it on my shelf somewhere back there.
If you see it, let us know.
If you see it, yeah. and I guess the best way to describe this game is it's almost like a precursor to like roll and write games or flip and write games where. But it has almost like a kind of a bingo style. So what it is you have this kind of octagon shaped board, and you have these tiles, and each tile has like 3 different colored lines that are going across it that represent pipes, really. And what you're doing is you randomly, one person is randomly pulling from a stack of these tiles, and everybody has the same tiles, and they pull one out and they describe the tile, and then everybody has to pick that exact same tile from their personal supply, and then put it somewhere on this board. And the goal of the game is you're trying to fill up rows and columns and diagonals with the exact same color pipe. And each pipe is worth a certain amount of points, from anywhere from like 1 point to 9 points. And the way the game works is at the end of the game, once you've filled up your entire board, you then go through, and for every pipe that's complete from one side to the other, if it's a complete pipe with only that color, then you score that many points times the number of pipes, tiles that you've put on. So a lot of math at the end of the game, but it's a cool game where you could have 4 copies of this and you could play like 15 people. Because it's all simultaneous play. A little bit thinky, but a real fun, real fast game to play. And still one that I pull out quite a bit. So that's my number 3, Take It Easy.
Kind of reminds me of, like, as far as like modern games, maybe it had influence on games like Bunny Kingdom or King Domino or something like that.
I could see, definitely, because you are doing some matching with tiles. And I also think of Karuba. Karuba is one of those games where you pull a tile and everybody plays the exact same tile, but at the end your boards look completely different.
Or Tiny Towns.
Same kind of concept. So definitely one of the first, I think, to do that, and it's still a really great game.
Number 2.
Okay, so for my number two, I chose a classic game. This was came out in 1983, and it's Scotland Yard.
Nice. Good pick.
And this is still a great game. I've actually played it within the past year. It is a hidden movement game where you've got one player who's playing Mr. X, and then the other players are playing detectives. And the whole board is basically a map of London. And there are different routes on the board that are all connected to these dots. You can take different train routes versus taxi type cab routes versus some water routes. And the whole goal is that Mr. X is off the board but has essentially a pad of paper in front of them, and they're moving to different spots secretly on the board. But then every so often they have to reveal their position to the detectives. And then the detectives try to sort of converge on Mr. X's location. And if they ever land on a spot where Mr. X is, then they capture him and they win the game. If so many rounds go by, then Mr. X escapes, essentially. So really cool, kind of one of the first, if not the first, sort of one versus many type game. And it also has like a neat little visor, so that if you're Mr. X, you wear this visor so nobody can see like where you're looking on the board. It's cheesy, but it's a whole lot of fun. Still a great game, and has spawned a ton of hidden movement games over the years. So that's my number two, Scotland Yard.
Excellent, great pick. My number two is another party game. This came out in '85. This is more along the lines of for the creative types. Still introvert, I believe, but I think you'll enjoy it. And everyone has played a version of this because there's been so many releases. Pictionary.
Yeah.
So how can you go wrong with a game that is about drawing, from what you draw? Card. Play on words. Drawing from what you draw on a card. And trying to get your teammates to guess it. It's just classic. Good fun, all around. Party game, yes. But lasting impact, and, these are the games.
Yeah, it's kind of like everybody's played this one.
This is the decade all these classics came out. So.
Yeah, definitely. I like this game, but it's similar to... mentioning before, like with some of the derivative tech games, I like other versions of these games, like Telestrations.
Yeah, I would say Telestrations is a much better game if you're looking for that drawing party game mechanic.
Yeah.
But it didn't come out in the 80s.
No, and I even saw, again, talking about Target, I saw this Pictionary game where you're like drawing now in the air, and you can see your drawing on the television. So this game still has legs.
They're still coming up with new ways to make it fresh. So pick up any version you like, because it's all going to be good fun.
Yeah, good pick. Good pick.
Number one. So what's your number one pick?
All right, so my number one is actually, I think it's still a great game. It's still in print, but the reason that it's my number one is this is one of the first games that I bought that got me into the hobby. And the name of this game is Survive, Escape from Atlantis.
I knew you were going to pick this.
Yeah, this one came out in 1982. It's also one of the ones on my shelf. It was one of those games where when I was looking for games to play with the family, when I just sort of discovered this hobby, and games that also worked well with adults, this was one of the ones that a lot of people recommended. So I picked this one up, and it's just really fun, a concept where you have this island that's made up of these tiles that are sort of stacked on top of each other. And the island is slowly sinking because of this active volcano. And you have your little sort of explorers who are trying to make it from the island to the mainland, which are these little numbered kind of meeples. And on your turn, you just have basic rules where you're, rolling a dice, you're moving a certain amount of spaces. But the fun of this game is that you have like sharks and you have sea monsters that you can move on your turn and really like totally mess with the other players. So it's the kind of family game where if you have got a family that like doesn't mind like getting attacked, the take that aspect, and they just take it all in good fun. It's a really, really good one. It's got great components and enough of sort of a gamery feel to it that this is one I've even played with adults and have enjoyed playing. Yeah. So Survive, Escape from Atlantis
and
is
that has
my
multiple
number one.
Versions as well.
They do. They have a space version essentially where instead of having like sharks and different like giant squids and things like that. You're fighting like aliens,
Okay.
and you have spaceships.
So the game is basically the same.
But it's the same game, same kind of
mechanisms.
concept. Just they add a little bit extra like mechanics and things. I've not played that one. I've heard it's good, but I just love that classic sort of ocean,
Can't go wrong with
island
that.
theme. Yeah.
And Jaws, of course, is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's always fun to just totally, have a shark eat one of your wife's meeple or whatever. So it's good, lots of fun.
Excellent. Well, that's a great pick. So, looking at my number one, this is a very nostalgic game for me as well. This is one that I've played over and over growing up. From 1989. Yep, game called Taboo.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone remembers this because it came with a very annoying and loud buzzer. And the best part is you get to buzz people, and I love buzzing like my parents and my sister.
It's
and
the worst.
Yeah, you get
right in your ear.
It's like, and then they just start talking, and they'd be like, no. It's like, it was just. It's insane, but
it was it's a fun game.
I don't even remember, some of the gameplay aspect of it, other than there's someone like over your shoulder, like watching for the words that you're not allowed to say.
That's right. You don't say the variant of the word.
Essentially, you draw a card, and it's a team game, and so you're trying to get your team to guess the word on the card.
Yes.
And there's a list under there of things you can't say, and then one of the opponents is behind you with a buzzer in your ear, basically.
Making sure you do not say.
And if you do, they go.
Yeah. This is a fun one. Almost made my list as well.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of fun with this game, and I probably still have a copy of this somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those just fun party games, and it's I feel like that buzzer is really what made it.
Yeah. This may be the one that most people would pick
game.
for number one. I would think, just because
from this decade, I feel like that's one of the best party games that had come out.
Yeah, and everybody had it too.
Yeah, everyone did. I mean, you didn't have to bring it anywhere, and you didn't have to really teach it. I mean, because what I just said is how you play.
Right. Good, very good pick. Very good pick.
So those are our top 10 games picks for top games that came out between 1981 and 1990. Our top 10 over 30.
Yep.
Stick around and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss our next podcast episode where we may or may not discuss our top 10 of games top 10 over 20.
Over 20, yep.
So 91 to 2000.
To 2000, that's right.
So I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, this is gonna be a tough list.
This is gonna
be a lot of
This
games.
is a fun decade to look at next, and I'm curious how much crossover we're gonna have. But thank you for checking this out, and if you're on YouTube, you can comment below. We'll listen and respond as best we can. We'd love to hear your picks for your top 10s, and if you're listening on our streaming podcast, we're now on various streaming platforms like Spotify, Anchor FM, Apple, Pocket Cast, something.
All the main ones.
All the ones.
All the major ones.
All the things. So yeah, however you want to listen, and if you would rate us, that'd be cool. Then we'll get more viewers and listeners and all that jazz. So if you're also one of the people listening and not seeing the video, you might want to check out our YouTube channel because it's associated with the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel, where we also have tutorial videos on medium to heavy complex games. We've got some lore videos where there's actually, like a 10-minute video on how the fictional in-game universe of certain games, how that sets up. Unboxings. We've got
giveaways.
We're doing some giveaways coming up soon, which I haven't announced yet, but very soon I'll be doing a game giveaway. So you have to be subscribed to the channel to be able to be eligible, but stick around for that.
Am I eligible for this? No,
We'll talk later.
I think there's a clause I have to sign.
Yeah, you might have to sign something. Cool. But yeah, definitely keep around. Stay tuned for that. And I think this has been a really cool series so far.
Yeah, I like this series.
These top 10s on the decade only, so very limited on our choices.
Yeah.
But as we get closer to present, that's where some of the more modern games or ones that we play more often are going to get picked.
I think most of the ones in my collection. I've got a lot in those.
And we're going to start seeing more hate, I think.
Probably so.
It's like, how could you not pick this from
That's true.
From the 90s? So. All right, guys. I've been Jared.
And I've been Jay.
We'll see you next time.
Catch you later. Bye.